Build Your Online Business Podcast, Episode 2. Welcome to the Build Your Online Business Podcast. On this podcast, you will learn from our successes as well as our mistakes as you attain freedom, reach your every goal, and most importantly, have fun with your very own online business. Why, hello, my name is Albert Hathazi, and I am here with my friend and co-host, John Naster. How are you doing, John?
Today I'm doing very well. Excellent, in fact.
We had a very exciting weekend, didn't we? We attended a play that both of our daughters were in.
Yeah, we did. It was great to see them on stage performing, having a good time.
Yeah.
Entertaining.
And it was my daughter's first performance, and she is like totally in love with that kind of production now. She wants to keep going. Yeah,
so does my daughter. It's neat how you could look at the kids up there, and it's like I could picture myself being like, there's a few little boys in the back where it seemed like they were kind of forced to be there maybe, and they were like so nervous and shy and didn't want to be on stage. That was totally me when I was a kid. But my daughter, you put her on stage and just the biggest smile, and just this is what she wants to do. You can just tell. She's just so excited by everybody staring at her and clapping, and I was the exact opposite at 8 years old.
Me too. I never went on stage. And now people don't believe that I never went on stage because I'm on stage lots with the legends now. But you said that your daughter was first on stage, not even in this country.
Yeah, when we went to Buenos Aires this past winter, we were down there, and there was a play that they had been training, I think, for almost 6 months at this point, and they had about 6 weeks left. And the lady that was teaching my daughter and my wife Spanish at our apartment, her sister owns a place where they were doing this play and teaching kids, and it was right down the street. For some reason, like this city of like 14 million people, and for some reason we happened to be 2 blocks from this place. So she started going twice a week to that, and then she did a full performance in front of like I think a couple hundred people, and it was completely in Spanish, and she only knew what the words meant specifically because she had been taught them by her Spanish teacher, but in context and stuff, she didn't really get it. But there was lights, there was smoke, there was people cheering, and to her, it was just like, oh my God. So instantly when we came back to Thunder Bay, she had to join another one, and she's already pining to be in another one. So it's cool. I like it. I'm glad she's so into it. So.
Cool. Well, I'm glad my daughter's into it too. Let's talk about what's coming up on the show, because I know people are here to talk about internet marketing. We wanted to quickly do a recap of episode 1, but before we do that, we have a really interesting segment. It's not exactly the technical details of what you or your team need to do for internet marketing, but nonetheless, it's very important, and it's a concept called the perfect day. But John, before we get into that, why don't you take us through the recap of your 9 core business procedures that were on the first episode?
Okay. So the first episode, we just went through basically what we call my 9 core business rules, which is the 9 rules that I put any new idea or business, like any project I can become a part of. I have to put them through these to make sure they fit my business and the goals of my business and my life. So as a quick recap, number 1, time is not money. Number 2, always be closing, which is a play on always be selling. Number 3 is instant authority. Number 4, list building. If you don't have a list and you're not working on building a list, I don't think you're getting into business. So you should focus on these things. Number 5 is the end of competition. Number 6, compound marketing. Number 7, systems. Number 8 was play to win. And number 9 is responsibility. And we go into full, or pretty much full in some of them in the first episode. And some of them are going to become separate episodes themselves, because I think they're super important for all businesses, and they're super important for my business. So I want to be able to explain those in greater detail further down the road.
Yeah. Now let's move on to our feature segment, and we just want to give you a little background. We were brainstorming what to proceed with the podcast, and I recalled one time when we were talking at coffee, you had brought up the fact that you're so pleased the way things are going, and you're living your perfect day. And I asked you what that was about, and that is basically what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to pass it on to you, John.
Okay, the perfect day. Unfortunately, I don't exactly live the perfect day yet. I'm very, very close, 99% there probably. And I have lived the perfect day. But the idea of the perfect day comes from Frank Kern. Frank Kern doesn't seem to be around anymore in internet marketing, but he was, for say, 3, 4, 5 years ago, he was like the king of king for internet marketers. He only really came up with one product, it seems, and it wasn't actually that good of a product. Sorry, Frank. I'm sure you won't hear this, but he was a master salesman and a master of like mindset for creating what you want or manifesting your goals. So he did this presentation at one point and he called it the perfect day, which it's the ultimate question that you have to ask yourself to determine what the perfect day for you would look like. And not just, I would want a big house and a fancy car. Like, it's not even about stuff. It's about experiences and how those will define you. And literally taking from the second you wake up and open your eyes all the way through and writing this stuff down. This isn't like in a goal setting sort of way, because goals are something people like to set every New Year's and then they forget about them. It's why gyms are the busiest January to February, and then March because goals are a whole different thing, and goals are something that I do now believe in and that they work when you write them down, but this is different. This is literally just, I see it because I kind of did it. It was like 10 or 12 pages long. I wrote it out and it took me several hours to do. And I really put a lot of thought into it. And then I forgot about it until I got really, really close to actually living that day. And it all came back to me. And I was kind of astounded that it worked so well. And it was just, I think, the act of thinking about it, what I actually wanted. To me, it's ultimately where those like 9 core business rules come from, because I had determined exactly what I wanted to get. And if you don't know exactly what you want to get in life and in business, then I don't know how you can go day to day and if you don't know where you're going. So it's something that if you do this, it gets put into the back of your head, you forget about it. On a conscious level, you forget about it, but subconsciously it's there, and just you're always doing things to get closer and closer and closer to that. And I don't know what the actual reasons are for it, except that it worked amazingly well for me. And I firmly, firmly believe that this is where you should start. If you don't have a business, if you do have a business, you're started, but still sit down and do this. So it's what it basically is the ultimate question. The ultimate question is, if there were no limitations or no consequences, what would your perfect average day look like? So not a specific day where you get to do all the greatest things in the world. This is the average day. This is the day that if you had to, could you live this day over and over and over and over again until the day you die and be absolutely happy? It's an important question, right? It gets rid of limitations. If there were no limitations, so, I mean, there's always limitations, right? Financial can be your limitation. You don't have a lot of money to start a business. It's great. Internet is perfect for that. There's the $100 startup, they call it, right? For that amount of money, you can get started. There can be geographic limitations. We made this joke in the first episode, like how we're in Thunder Bay, which is a tiny city in a tiny country surrounded by just trees and wildlife, which is amazing. But normally to start a business, that's not the best place to be. Mm-hmm. But there's no limitations for this first day, right? Maybe you have a health concern right now, But this question is not about that. It just says that you can you can be anywhere you want. You can be as healthy as you want. You can have as much money as you could possibly need to do this day.
So you think big, you think as big as you can?
If that's what you want. It's not about goal setting. So it's not about, I want to make $100,000 a year, because this doesn't have anything to do with that. This is one day. This isn't a goal. This is seriously a mindset that you're going to set up now of what you're actually looking to wake up to. And it's getting very specific. So you got to remember that this is the average day, right? So this isn't just one special thing. I want to fly to the moon. It's like, do you want to fly to the moon every single day? Probably not, right? It's just not something you do. This is average stuff. The question isn't about stuff or things, right? Because it's one day. It's not about, I would go buy like a Ferrari. I would go buy this giant house. I would go buy this fancy, but it's like, really? Well, you're going to do that every single day? Oh, it's fine. I mean, there's no limitation of like finances. So you could, I guess, but it would probably get kind of boring sitting in like a car showroom every single day. After the second or third one, you'd be kind of like, okay, I get it, right? You kind of want something more personal, more fulfilling. And that's what this is about. So the questions are all based on desired experience, not goals and not stuff, because our experiences are what define us and what shape us. So you're starting off, would you start off with like a piece of paper and just start jotting ideas? I started with a legal notepad, yellow. It's actually in my office somewhere. I tried to find it this morning, but I know it's here. It's about 10 pages long. And you start from the very moment. So here's how it would play out, sort of. Where would you live? So you open your eyes in the morning and you see, like, for this to work, I think you have to get as vivid and as real as you possibly can. Like, seriously, you can do what you would smell in the morning. Like, do you smell somebody making coffee? Do you anything that you can do? Not just like, I live in a giant house, I'd get up, I would do nothing, and then I would go eat a fancy lunch. It's like, no, it's like, this needs to really, if you want this to work, and it's worked for me, and I did it this way, is that you really, really got to put the thought into this. This is going to take hours. This shouldn't take you 20 minutes to do. If it takes you 20 minutes to do, you didn't put enough thought into it.
Right.
So you wake up in bed, right? And then, like, what's in your surroundings? Who's beside you in bed? And I guess the big thing about this is that only you're ever supposed to see this. It's not for you to post on your blog. It's not for you to show other people, because as you're going through this, you need to see how congruent or incongruent it is to your life as it is now. And if it's completely different and incongruent, then you need to figure out why. And you need to either change your perfect day, or because realizing that that's not actually what you want, or you have to be, well, this path I'm on now is in no way ever going to take me there, because all of these things are incongruent to it. Obviously, you're not going to see lots of the same things, but I mean, it'll make sense when you're doing it.
Right.
So you wake up, right? You look over at the clock. What time is it? Like, what time do you want to wake up in the day? Do you want to wake up at 8:30 every morning? Are you a morning person? I woke up at 10 after 11 today. That's terrible. Not my perfect day. It was awesome. Actually, for today, it was perfect. I loved it. I went back to bed after getting my daughter to school, but to me, that wouldn't be the perfect day every day. But I don't like mornings. I don't like getting up at 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock's good for me. What's good for you? Some people love 5:30 in the morning. They are super productive and get stuff done. Then if you have a family and they're in this, they were in mine, what would your family be doing? Like, is your wife or spouse going to work, or are they just going to enjoy themselves, or are they working on a business, or are they going to visit family? You need to know these things. You need to know what it is you're looking for. You sit down to breakfast if you want breakfast. Like, what are you going to eat on your perfect day? You have to do this for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. What are you going to eat today? Do you want to eat something completely unhealthy? Maybe you do, but you got to think you got to do this for the rest of your life. And you're probably not going to live that long if you're eating some crazy unhealthy breakfast, right? And then what do you want to do with your time from breakfast until lunchtime? What do you see yourself doing? Do you want to go to work at that point? Do you want to start working, or do you want to ignore that and just spend time with your wife? Do you want to be able to drive your kids to school? Do you want to be able to walk them to school? Do you want them to be homeschooled? These are all things that you need to think about, and you really, really like the very minute details of this day. The more minute you can actually get to what you're thinking and what you're feeling as you're doing things. Like if I'm going to walk my daughter to school, like how does it feel? Like, am I going to talk to other parents while I'm there? Or am I just going to stand back and watch them rushing in and out of the school? And I'm going to just be thankful that I don't have to do that? Or what are these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to get to lunch. Where do you want? Frank Kern's thing was always like, he actually defined his friends that he was going to have lunch with. And they weren't any friends that he had at this point. They were friends that he couldn't like define as people at that point, but what kind of stuff they would be into, what kind of stuff they would be doing, and how they would be helping him live a better life, and how they would eat something healthy, and what they would talk about. They would talk about all the great things they did with their morning, or all the cool stuff they've done in their life or business since the last time they talked. It wouldn't be just gossip and just totally useless stuff, or people complaining about the weather or complaining about their job. You need to know like what you want to be surrounded with, and then you have to write all of this stuff down in absolute detail.
I know as you're saying this, when you say the detail, that's when I start thinking, that's when I get excited, is when not just the overall, but then when I start tweaking my emotions and the smells and the sights, that's when I could feel my excitement rise.
Yeah. To me, it's weird. To me, the whole time, every time I think about the perfect day, it always comes down to breakfast. I don't even eat breakfast, which is hilarious. Usually because like my family's gone, right? Like my wife's at work, my daughter's at school. And so we've had it though, because I mean, we travel for a couple months at a time, and we do get that time where nobody has to be anywhere. And we literally wake up at like 9:30, and then we just sit down and we have breakfast, and we just talk about what we should do today. And like, it's awesome. And that's, to me, you're probably going to find one thing, like maybe it's what you're going to do in the evening, or who you're going to have supper with, and like what you're going to talk about. Maybe that's going to be it for you, but there's probably going to be something where your brain sticks to this one thing, and that's what it's always about. Like I can picture what I'm eating and who's sitting with me, and then I get to like walk my daughter to school and walk back and not be in a rush in any way, and just like feel great about it and get to talk to her about stuff and not just like rush her through things. And I think doing that and getting to the absolute very, very nitty gritty of it, and just taking the time and really, really working out the details, I think is super, super key. But then you also, once you get through that part of it, I think it's essential that you get into bigger stuff too. Like your perfect day is usually going to be, I mean, to me at least, it's defined by my business and what my business will look like on that day. Like, do I get to wake up and then at like after breakfast at say 10:30, do I get to come home and just check out like how many new customers I've got, how many new signups I've got to my sites, or you know what I mean? And just, there's certain things that I really wished before I ever got to do that I really wished I could check these certain stats and just be like, that would be so amazing if I could just do that every single day. And I think you need to get into these bigger things too, because it's all about, when you're going to set up your core business rules, you need to know what it is you're trying to achieve before you know if it's going to fit. And so what rules are going to help take you to that place. So like, what time would you start working today? If you didn't have to go to work and you didn't have a boss telling you, would you go to work at the same time every day? I typically don't go to work at the same time every day. It's something where I just kind of take it day by day. Some days I feel like working early in the morning, which to me is like 9 or 10, and other days I really don't. I feel like working at night after everyone's gone to sleep. I just feel more productive. It's nice outside. I want to be out there, and there's nothing pressing for me to do. So that works for me. And then you need to know, like, how long will you work for a day? Like, are you going to work for 2 hours? like every day, or are you going to work for 1 hour? Are you going to work for 5 hours? Are you going to work for 12 hours a day? This is every single day for the rest of your life. So you need to know this stuff. And to me, this is huge with your business because you have to set this stuff up from the beginning. If you don't want to work 12 hours a day for the rest of your life, you need to think about that actively as you're doing everything in your business and creating it from the ground up. You have to think. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I can do this today and I can work this 12 hours, but do I have to do this again tomorrow? And maybe I do because I've already done it once, right? Rather than thinking and like, maybe this isn't even worth the 12 hours effort for the little bit of extra money I'll make from it, or maybe I can outsource it, or maybe we can just do this one part of it that only takes an hour to do. To me, it's very, very key. And this is all part of your perfect day. This isn't what you're eating and what you're doing, but this is the ultimate. This is where to me, it's where I derive like comfort and just not having to worry about money and stuff, because I know that my business is set up to do what it's supposed to do and what I want it to do. Then there's also going to be like, what would you do for personal fulfillment, right? You can't just not do anything all the time. I mean, it sounds great when I was 20 years old, right? Obviously. I mean, yeah, if I could win $1 million, I would do nothing. It's like, well, no, you wouldn't actually, because it gets boring. It gets really boring. And there's a lot of people out there that need help. There's a lot of things that need doing that you can do. If you have that time, if you have the money and you have the means to do stuff, you're going to want to do things. You really will. If you are going to write this, like sit here and write this stuff down, and if you can't find anything that's you're going to drive personal fulfillment from, like, this isn't about stuff. I'm not talking personal fulfillment as, oh, I'll be personally fulfilled if I make $10 million. Like, no, you won't actually. You'll be financially fulfilled, but not personally fulfilled. That's what this is about. This isn't about stuff, remember. This is about actual just experiences and what you're going to do on the perfect day and how you're going to do it. So, and then there's other stuff like greater, bigger, high things, like what sort of relationship will you be in? Like, will you be married? If you're not married now, will you be married then? If you're married now and it doesn't fit your perfect day, will you be married then? What will your family be like? Will you have one kid? Will you have 3 kids? Will you just have pets? Will you just have a spouse that you love to travel with and do stuff with, but no kids and no pets? These are things you need to know. You need to think about these. And maybe you can't even sit down right now and write out this whole perfect day. Maybe you need to think about it for a few days. Or maybe you need to go back later and change something. Be like, actually, you know what? That's not what I want. I've changed now. And I would actually like to have a family. I would like to have 3 children. But you need to know this. You need to write this stuff down, just because it's going to set your brain up in just an amazing way that just is going to work towards this stuff, even when you don't know that it is. And I would not be trying to tell you to do this if I hadn't done it 3 years ago now and lived a perfect day at this point in my life. And like I said, I don't live it every single day. And I'm getting very close, like very, very close at this point. My business is going to do some things that I'm sure within another year I will be living it, but I have lived a day like that. And so it's proof that it works. And I think that it's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, I heard about this type of thing before. I don't know if it was Frank. I think it was someone else who probably learned it from him as well. And I told you before that I kind of started this process, but I don't even know where it is. So I'm going to ask a couple questions now, John, to help people that are ready to do this. And again, we're talking about this because this isn't just a theory that we heard about. This is something that you have done and it's benefited you. And you know that if people do this, invest the time, they're going to benefit from it as well. So I'll ask you again, what did you write it on yourself?
I wrote it on a legal notepad, yellow. I had half a notepad sitting around somewhere. I personally, for me, goals, this isn't a goal. I don't want to get into goals. We will in one episode. But to me, the act of physically writing it down, not just scratching it off on your computer or on a notepad or something, to me really gives it personal. It really, to me, it something that goes into my brain better.
Right.
And I can only say that because I've only done this once and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say it any other way, but I know when I was watching the Frank Kern thing, he was talking about writing it down, or that's how he did it. And it was just how I still actually take notes. I have notes on my desk here that are in like pen and paper, just certain really important things. I have to do it in pen and paper. Maybe you can do it on a computer. I don't know. I've done it and it worked writing it down. So, I mean, if you're not willing to sit down and write it out, then maybe you're not willing to actually try and find the perfect day.
Right.
That's, to me, I think it's usually just through laziness that you're just going to want to type it out because it's quicker. I can type it. I can re-edit it. It's not about editing. It's not about spelling. It's not about grammar. It's about nobody ever reading this but you. I mean, you can let people read it if you want, but it should be so personal and it should agitate some things possibly in your life already that you really don't want anybody else reading this because it might not be for their benefit. I'm not sure. It didn't really happen that way with me, but I still have never shown it to anybody. I don't think it's for anybody else. It's kind of like a personal diary of the future, so that's what I did. Pen and paper, always.
Okay. Did you edit anything after, like even a month after when you learned something else?
Nothing.
Really?
No, I don't think I don't think you should actually edit it once it's done. I mean, if it takes you a week to do this because you're thinking really hard about this, which I think is a cool way to do it. I didn't do that. I did it literally in one afternoon. And I thought really hard about the stuff, but I think I already knew the stuff. It was just needed to be put down on paper. So I don't know. I mean, if something greatly changed in your or in what you wanted, then by all means, it only worked for me this way. And nothing ever came up that I was ever like, oh, maybe I should change that. Like, not once. I was just, that's my perfect day. Like, what else could I want? So it's not things, right? It's not like, oh, now I want a red car rather than a yellow car. It's, I knew what I wanted. And I mean, the house you're in and stuff, that kind of, it's just in your imagination, in your head, right? So it's not necessarily concrete. So I don't think it needs to change. It just, you'll know it when it's there.
What would you say to somebody who, they know they want to do this internet type business and they don't know maybe the details of, I want to look at my back end and see I got so many customers or email opt-ins. What would you say if they were at that point and they were a little bit stuck?
Well, you got to define your business. If you're looking to get into business and it's going to set up your perfect day, you need to know that. And maybe like I wasn't specific necessarily in those. Like I didn't have like those specifics, but I knew just from buying into products and being through product launches and stuff. And it's always people talking about waking up and checking their stats for PayPal. And you know what I mean? Just getting to do that and knowing that your business is functioning without you or while you're sleeping or while you're doing anything else, to me was a very, very defining characteristic in the perfect day. And I didn't know what I was going to look at. I had no clue. This isn't about numbers. This isn't about stuff again, right? This isn't about, I was going to make $1,000 a day. I was just going to check my stats and there was going to be activity that was towards my business I wanted.
Right.
So it's you really can't get caught up in that. We're not setting goals. I'm not setting a business goal or an income goal or anything. I'm setting up the perfect ideal of what I want and what it would be. But not if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we're not doing goals at this point.
Yeah.
We're just literally setting up what you want to do.
This is really good. I think what we'll do is when we get the show notes up, we'll put down maybe some of the areas that you want to touch on, maybe a little bit more explanation of the areas you want to touch on when you're doing this exercise. Yeah,
I think that's a great idea because it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, but it's one of those things where you literally, it's not about my questions. Maybe the questions I said aren't even for you. Maybe, but to me, that's what worked. Mm-hmm. And so I can only suggest those things, but you might think of other stuff like that are really, really important to you and that you'd like to think of or do during the day. And by all means, it's your day. No one's reading this, right? This is all for you. So you just need to define this, and you need to get, when you think that you're being so ridiculously particular about who you're talking to and how you're feeling and what you're wearing and what the plane that's going overhead, then that's when you're at the right spot. When you just think that, oh, this is crazy, I've written 20 pages. And it's like, well, I mean, if 20 pages of writing isn't worth your perfect day for the rest of your life, then I guess just get used to your job and don't ever want to deviate from that and head towards this goal. Because if you do it, it works. But if you're not willing to even sit down for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, or if it takes you a week, then it's to me, it's like, I can't help you. Right.
Yeah.
So.
No, this is good. I think this is an excellent way to start our little podcast series here. It's the foundation.
It absolutely is.
I think it's going to be homework for me too.
There you go.
I'm going to do some of this. Don't forget to visit our website, buildyouronlinebiz.com. There you'll find our show notes for all of our episodes. John, where can people find you?
Right now, the best place to find me is always on Twitter. I'm at John Nastor, so JONNASTOR, and I'm on there. My wife says way too much, but yeah, come by, ask questions, tell me what you think, and we'll have a chat.
You could also find me on Twitter at Albert Hathazi. Also, if you have a topic you want us to cover on the show, email us, feedback@buildyouronlinebiz.com. Well, this wraps up this episode of Build Your Online Business Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm Albert.
And I'm John.
It's Albert from the podcast. Do you want to become a Build Your Online Business Insider? Well, if you do, go to our website at buildyouronlinebiz.com and sign up for our newsletter there.